Everyone loves Spider-Man, and there's enough variants of him to go around. But my favorite Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Not only did I grow up with him as my main Spidey, mostly because of how emotionally deep his character goes, it helps flesh out some of his pain. What's more interesting is his rogue gallery. Almost every one of them has a personal relationship with him that adds more scope to his pain. From the letdown that Norman Osborn is as a CEO and father of his best friend, to Doc Ock who's hell-bent on catching the webhead. But one of his most famous villains is Venom. Well, Venom is more of an anti-hero who's misunderstood at times. When Sony announced they were making standalone Venom films, I was curious to see how this would fit into our already standing with Spidey. Well, none of that is here. In fact, we'll never mention anyone else except for the symbiotes that come from the same planet Venom does. Let's begin. At the start of the film, we're introduced to Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock, who lives in San Francisco and works as an investigative journalist, who's engaged to Annie and lives a happy life. Eddie heads to a meeting with his boss, who tells him that his next assignment involves a brilliant yet cautious person to be around, business mogul Carlton Drake. Eddie takes the assignment, stating that he's going to do his best not to ruin the interview, but of course, Eddie can't let anything slide and begins to dig deep into Drake, the CEO of Life Foundation. During the interview, Eddie begins asking about the human test subjects they've been taking, and this is when Drake stops the interview and tells Eddie to have a nice life. Eddie gets fired and his fiancée loses her job and she leaves him. At Life Foundation, we learn that they are bringing back from space alien life forms, which are known as symbiotes. Under Drake's orders, the scientists usually take in homeless people and use them for experiments. This experiment is to see if the alien life form can gel with their human host. In the name of science, he claims to create the perfect life form for space travel. Eventually, one of Drake's trusted scientists, Dr. Skirth, is horrified by these experiments. She tracks down a disgruntled Eddie Brock and tells him he was right and she can sneak him into the facilities. Eddie takes the chance. Inside the facility, Eddie runs into one of his friends, who was a homeless woman with a salesman hustle, Maria. Maria is clearly in pain, and Eddie breaks her out when the symbiote jumps from inside of her into Eddie. Eddie breaks out of the facility doing some cool jumps, which lands him on top of a tree. Eddie returns home to find he's changed, and now he can hear another voice inside his head. This is Venom, who is voiced by Tom Hardy as well. Venom and Eddie now have to learn to live with each other while evading Drake's Life Foundation goons who want Venom back at any cost.
Down the street like a turd in the wind. Do you feel me?
Venom isn't a great film, but it has some moments of superhero movie fun, with over-the-top stunts and way too many cars smashing into things and getting wrecked. Of course, Venom himself is all CGI. We do get to see another symbiote who will play the part of the main villain, known as Riot, who does enough to give us a good fight, but as a symbiote, we never really get to know much other than what Venom thinks. He's a jerk. When it comes to these two and how well they look to their original comic book counterparts, Venom is spot on, almost. But after Sony's last attempt, I'll say this one's perfect. When it comes to Riot, his comic book counterpart looks almost exactly like Venom, but with more white flame eyes. With this movie, the elongated skull gives him a crocodile face. And the more I stare at this guy, the more the nightmares become real. The relationship building with Eddie and Venom is the heart of this film, and like its source material, it's an important thing to get right. Eddie is first frightened by Venom, while Venom is looking out for the safety of Eddie. Why? Venom tells Eddie that he likes him and that they're a good match for each other, not only having to share one body in a symbiotic relationship, but also that they're losers. Yes, at the bottom of this film, this is about two losers becoming friends. Hard to believe that you'd make a simple high school movie plot the theme of a Venom film, but Sony doesn't seem to care much, huh? This film is so meh in the golden age of superhero films that it would naturally get a 3 out of 5 stars. But there's an important part we're missing here. Spider-Man. Look, you can be a Venom fan and say he's a strong enough character to stand on his own, and I'd agree, but there's no mention of Spidey. Not even a poster or graffiti. As far as I know, this Eddie Brock exists in a universe without him. because Sony done did screw up his last outing, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This film began early development back during the release of said movie, and after they couldn't solve it, they let the MCU play with Spidey instead. So honestly, now it's a solid 2 out of 5 stars. This film is okay, and Tom Hardy both give some good performances. But if he wasn't producing this, I'd say they'd cast someone else. Tom Hardy isn't the guy I see when I picture Eddie Brock, and definitely not Topher Grace. The bad guy, Mr. Drake, though his actions were scary, and using humans as test subjects is awful, I never felt like he was intimidating standing around in his suit. What really got me was the mid-credit scene where Eddie goes to San Quentin State Prison to interview Cletus Cassidy. I don't know how they got Woody Harrelson, who's wearing a horrible red wig, but I haven't seen the second film. But oh boy, I've got a good idea of what I'm stepping into. Hey, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like and comment down below. Tell me, what do you think of this movie? Do you think I'm right about Spider-Man not being part of it? Or you kind of enjoy this bizarre solo outing of this character? I'd be curious. Bye.